So in so doing, these theories were based on learning seen as a change in observable behavior, because behaviorists would rather see people in a certain setting and send some stimulus and then see the responses. And we see that these principles in adult learning based on the behavioral psychology still affect or are relevant in training programs, especially in the business and industry, the military and instructional technology. Now, in these trainings, if we can take the example of the military, we know that in the military, in using Kiswahili, order ni moja. There is only one order, or order from above. When they tell you to jump, you do not ask why, you only ask how high. So there is a stimulus, jump, and the response should be the jumping. The stimulus is the order, and then the response is the action, the jumping. Business and industry, we know very well in industry, there are certain principles that are followed. Let's say in industry, chain of production. Chain of production, you do not need to question how it was made, how it was figured out, is how you just have to implement it. For as long as the product is out, the rest you do not ask. Instructional technology, the same thing. It's just like when you are working with robots, you just know that when even the robots that speak, they are fed with the different types of stimuli that is potential, so that the robot is manipulated, that when it senses or receives a particular stimulus, it gives the respondent a response, or the desired or the designed response that should be given according to the framers. So that is mainly quite mechanical and predictable in a way. But by mid 20th century, the interest in adult learners shifted from the behavioral psychology to now humanistic psychology, and the shift in perspective now brought in the fact that it was important to look at adulthood as opposed or as distinguished or as different from childhood, making a dichotomy between how adults learn as distinguished from how children learn. Last time we mentioned that these are not cast in stone, that how adults learn is specifically that only way that they can learn, and those approaches cannot be used on children. No, there is actually a crisscross. There are some adults who better learn treated as children, while there are children who better learn treated as adults who are self-directed. So a humanistic perspective on learning emphasized and emphasizes still personal growth and development, rather than the more mechanistic change in behavior. So this one is the humanistic perspective respects the human being as someone who has a soul, someone who can take decisions by themselves, and of course someone who can think by themselves, who can assess and choose between alternatives, rather than putting strict or predictable responses or processes that they should follow. So that is just transitioning, and we shall discover all these issues more when we are focusing on the particular theories. and models to adult learning. So this research, the humanistic research and writing on adult learning, is the one that really resulted and developed into adult education as a recognized field of practice with its own professional associations, journals, and conferences. And with time, it has developed and it has been constructed and built to what it is right now, to the extent that we even have professionals at master's level, at PhD level, and at professorial level, because it has expanded just like any other field grows and evolves. So now we look at the foundational theories. There are three major foundational theories of adult learning, which I am sure those who have done a bit of adult education before already know about. And these emerged during the time during the time of the mid 20th century, where andragogy, self-directed learning, and transformative learning evolved as those theories that we can consider to be mingled together, or to have come up to give the background, the foundation of what we refer to as adult learning now. We are going to see that they have a linkage which is a bit chronological, although we shall also see that andragogy and self-directed learning really came in almost concurrently or very quickly. Self-directed learning picking up from the bits within andragogy or andragogical principles that were suggested by Malcolm Knowles. But still, andragogy was the first, then evolved into self-directed learning, and then we see transformative learning. And after that, the rest of the theories, especially those that have brought in the context, have only supplemented on these three foundational theories: the andragogy, self-directed learning, and transformative learning. And of course, these are the ones that come in to really give a base from a humanistic point of view. And that is why in adult education, most of the principles that we use, the theories that we adopt in adult learning, in adult and community education, are more humanistic. And that is why we are more interested in the adult educator as a person who has a load of care, a load of responsibilities, and someone who should be given a room to also determine and influence their own learning and the processes within which they learn. So each theory or framework is associated with an adult educator who really wanted to define what is characteristic of the learning of adults as compared to the learning of children. So these three are associated to an adult educator each. And each one of them has a robust research base, and for the most part has withstood the test of time, which is exhibited or exemplified in how we are going to see the other theories actually recognizing these three foundational ones and building on their principles, building on their foundation. Now, I would like to first of all open up this discussion, but also to test whether we are still together. I have mentioned andragogy, I have mentioned self-directed learning, and transformative learning. Now, I would like to open up this discussion, especially for those who have done some bit of study on adult learning, to just see whether we remember the adult educators who are associated with these foundational theories. So, who is associated with andragogy? Anyone who would like to contribute? Someone remembers who is associated with andragogy?
It was Malcolm Knowles.
Malcolm Knowles, thank you. Self-directed learning, Judith, do you remember? Yes or no? Okay.
Are you asking the definition of andragogy?
No, I am asking the adult educator who is associated with self-directed learning.
Pardon?
The adult educator who is associated with the theory of self-directed learning. Okay. Samali, do you remember? Judith is not getting anything. Is it that my audio is not clear?
I think it's clear. For me, I just dropped off and then I came back again just a few moments.
Okay.
But now I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Judith, could it be your internet where you are that is making it unclear or something? Okay. I don't know whether we have heard of Alan Tuff. And Jack Mezirow?
No.
Jack Mezirow?
No.
Really? Okay. This evening we shall be able to relate them with some of these foundational theories, because it is important that we know those founding fathers of adult learning theory, so that the other discussions can only depend and be built on those ones that started the conversations on these theories. Okay. Let's continue. At least I've mentioned those names, so just wait and be able to locate them and apportion them to where they are supposed to be as the responsible fathers to some of these foundational theories. Of course, Malcolm Knowles is known as the grandfather of adult education theorization and is known popularly for the andragogy and the principles, therefore, that define how adults learn effectively. So, andragogy is a European concept which was imported to the US by Malcolm Knowles in the 1960s. And he introduced it as a new label and a new technology distinguishing adult learning from children's learning or pedagogy. And now, I want you to note that andragogy developed in around 1960s. And we mentioned that this was around the Industrial Revolution in America, and where they were struggling. Of course, the behaviorists were also struggling to do research to see how effectively the economy would develop, how to handle workers, how to handle people in groups, how to train them to adopt to the changes that they had to go through in trying to revitalize their economy. So Knowles proposed a set of assumptions about adult learners, and these principles and assumptions actually tell us more about the characteristics of learners rather than about the nature of learning itself. And this is the reason why Malcolm Knowles later on eventually shied away from calling andragogy a theory and rather settled for andragogy being a set of good principles that help us to understand the characteristics of adult learners so that we know how to work with them. And of course, these being characteristics of adult learners, they may not be limited and exclusively for adults. That is why we have been mentioning that there are also some children who may have the characteristics of how adults behave when it comes to learning. So in andragogy, Malcolm Knowles suggested that there was a continuum ranging from teacher-directed pedagogy on one end to student-directed learning, which is andragogy, on the other. So they are like on a line with two extremes and then some bit of middle point where we could say it is blended. It is blended. A middle point, average, neither teacher directed nor learner directed. So both approaches are appropriate with adults and children depending on the situation or circumstances or the context under which either the children are learning or the adults are learning. And still, I want to pause a little bit here. And ask for your engagement. What do you think this actually means, that both approaches are appropriate with adults and children depending on the situation? Under what circumstances do you think adults may actually want to learn as if to be helped as if they were children, and where they would have to be left as independent? Can we identify any of those situations? Anyone who would like to go first?
I was here thinking.
Yes.
In situations where the theme introduced to them is out of their experience.
Okay.
Then they will always raise a desire for them to be helped.
Okay.
And so it puts them into a position of learning as children.
When they already have experience?
No, when it's out of their experience.
Okay.
The subject is new.
Yes.
When it's not relating to their context.
Okay.
When it's a new subject to their to their learning, to their livelihood, something like that.
Yeah, you are right. And what I wanted was a real example of such a situation. Okay, since you have brought it up, I can give a quick example. The good thing is that you are a mother of three. Now, when you had just conceived your firstborn, I am sure you had no idea of the pains, the labor pains in the labor ward, what goes on there, how long it may take you to give birth. So if you were engaged in a discussion about giving birth when you have just conceived, you really need someone to guide you and to tell you, and you have to ask questions. You imagine, you get scared, or you are comforted, and you become anxious about what will happen. So
That is true.
in that way, you really want to be guided, because you don't know. But by the time you conceived the second and third child, you do not need anybody to lecture you on what happens in the labor ward, what happens with the giving birth.
That's true.
You instead you want everybody to keep quiet, and you narrate to them, you give them the information. And if someone told you to keep quiet so that they explain to you, you would even feel offended, because they might not even express certain aspects that you went through.
Yes.
Now, yes, and
it's such a good example that I have both experiences, a C-section and normal birth, so
so
I can relate.
Exactly. Now, Joshua, would you like to give an example where a child can be self independent, self-directed in their learning, as compared to another situation where the same child will need guidance and cannot be left to be self-directed, but rather guided step by step? Can you think of a practical example, a real life example?
Yes, I think it's between me and my brother. We actually a cousin of mine who were the same class in secondary school. For him, when they give us an assignment to do, he will always tell me, "Please, Joshua, please remind me to do the assignment." We're in the same class. We are always doing the same thing, but I'll have to tell him that, "Hey, it's time for the assignment because we are going to submit it tomorrow." He'll be like, "Oh, okay." But it's not like he can't do it, but he wants to be pushed, he wants to be reminded, he wants to be told. Yeah, and that was his life until we got done with secondary school. It was just like that. It was funny, but I had to always tell him to do his assignment. So that is it. I was like, it became like I was his parent, in as much as he was a bit older than me, 2 years older than me. Yeah, I think that is one of the examples I have life.
Okay. Vicky, would you like to say something?
For example,
Yes.
like now, some of us we didn't know anything to do with Zoom, right? With Zoom meeting. So this forced me to make sure that I look for the word of involving someone professional to help me understand how the Google meeting runs. So sometimes when something is new to you, it's always possible to look for the upper help.
Okay. Okay. I want us to imagine. I don't know about Samali, but my children rarely go to the village. If we are to go to the village, we do not spend more than 3 days. I think the longest we have stayed in the village has been 3 days consecutive. I don't know whether yours frequent the village and go and live with Jaja or something. But let's imagine my children rarely see a live chicken being slaughtered and then cut into pieces and cooked. If it is a whole chicken, in most cases they will see it coming from the supermarket. In most cases, they rarely see it, because I don't remember when I last slaughtered a chicken at home. It may be even 3 years ago. Now, if we bring my children and children from the village, and we are talking about slaughtering chicken and preparing chicken from a live one to now into the saucepan, which of these two children will be more self-directed in explaining the processes of this chicken being, first of all, chased, got, slaughtered, dressed, cut into pieces, and then boiled or cooked? Which of the two?
The ones from the village, because they see it frequently.
Okay.
Sometimes at a very early age they are taught to do it.
Oh, good. And now when we get a tablet or a smart mobile phone and we give it to these two children, my children who are here in the city and a child from a typical village, and we put a mobile phone there, who will be more self-directed in using that phone and tinkering with it and getting information or using it?
The ones in the village, because they are exposed to the gadgets.
The ones in the village?
No. In the town setting, like your children.
Okay.
I have an example with that. For some time, my husband was fighting with them to stop using his phone. So he got a very, very, very complicated pattern. For a year now, I have not got the pattern. And he put the pattern on the phone so that they don't easily access it, so that they don't easily access the internet. But within a week, they got the pattern, and me up to now, I cannot even dare to learn it. That is how children can be with exposure.
Exactly. So I thank you very much for that example. And the key word here is exposure. There are situations where a child in the village will be more exposed about a certain situation or a certain aspect or a topic of discussion because they are more exposed as compared to that one in the city. And then there are also those situations or aspects or discussions where a child in the city will be more self-directed even compared to an adult. And when you talk about patterns, that one is a given. I have also tried to change codes, try to change patterns. My wife doesn't know them. She even complains that I change them very much, but the children, they know. They know. I don't know whether they just give a long eye when I'm putting the patterns and they just get it, but somehow I leave my phone there and I come back and someone is using it. So that one gives us the situations depending, and this goes for both children and also the adults.